Never discussed divorce. Murder, yes, but never divorce.
Paul Newman, the man the world saw as Hollywood's gentleman, the blue-eyed icon who raced cars, won Oscars, and quietly gave millions to charity, carried a storm beneath that calm smile. Recently uncovered interviews expose a darker side of his story. 7 actors who betrayed him, friends who turned rivals, and co-stars who pushed his patience to the edge. At the top of that list was Robert Redford, Newman's supposed on-screen soulmate in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Behind the laughs and legendary chemistry was friction. Newman, the disciplined perfectionist. Redford, the charming latecomer who could wander in hours late and still nail a scene in one take. "It's infuriating," Newman once muttered to crew members. Then came Steve McQueen, not a friend, but a rival who made their towering Inferno collaboration a power struggle. McQueen demanded equal pay, equal lines, and his name above Newman's in the credits. The studio's compromise, McQueen's name first, but placed slightly lower, symbolized the tension that burned behind the scenes. When McQueen accused him of stealing close-ups, Newman snapped, "If you're that insecure, you don't need a co-star. You need a mirror." It was the first glimpse of the anger Hollywood never saw coming. After the towering Inferno, Steve McQueen learned the hard way that Paul Newman wasn't someone you could intimidate. Their silent standoff ended when the cameras stopped rolling. They never worked together again. Hollywood loved calling them rivals, but to Newman it wasn't rivalry at all. McQueen wasn't competition, he once said. He was an infection. And he wasn't the only one who crossed the line. Next came Charlton Heston, the idol who betrayed everything Newman believed in. Their feud wasn't about fame or film, but morality. While Newman marched for civil rights and raised money to end the Vietnam War, Heston gave speeches supporting it, and the NRA. "It's strange seeing Moses preach about guns," Newman once told his wife, Joanne Woodward. One night in 1966, fate seated them in the same Beverly Hills restaurant. Heston with pro-war campaigners, Newman with anti-war staffers. When Heston stood to greet him, Newman locked eyes and refused the handshake. From then on, their Cold War played out in interviews and headlines, Heston branding Hollywood liberals ungrateful, Newman firing back with the unforgettable jab. Some people confuse having played great men with being great men. And then came John Wayne, America's cowboy patriot, who saw Newman's anti-war stance as un-American. Wayne's The Green Berets glorified the war Newman publicly condemned. What followed wasn't just a clash of stars, but a cultural collision. Hollywood's loudest patriot versus its most defiant conscience. Paul Newman called The Green Berets dangerous propaganda, a line that lit a fuse between him and John Wayne. Their clash turned personal the following year at a Beverly Hills charity gala, when Wayne, whiskey in hand, sneered, "If you hate this country so much, why don't you leave it?" Newman didn't flinch. "Because it's mine too, Duke. You don't get to decide that," he fired back. From that night on, they were enemies in both ideology and spirit. Newman later told a reporter, "I admire his success, but John Wayne plays John Wayne in every movie. I try to play someone different each time." It was part insult, part manifesto, and a clear sign of how differently they saw their art and their country. But if Wayne tested Newman's patriotism, Marlon Brando tested his patience. Newman once idolized Brando, the fearless rebel who redefined acting, but by the 1960s, that admiration had curdled into contempt. When Brando strolled into a studio meeting barefoot, bored and late, Newman's disappointment was visible. "He's burning his own gift," he whispered to a friend. Where Newman thrived on preparation, Brando mocked it, bragging about not reading scripts and hiding cue cards around the set. "Lines aren't real life," Brando would say. Newman called it laziness disguised as genius. Their final fallout came in 1967, when both were offered roles in an anti-war drama. Brando refused rehearsals and demanded endless rewrites until Newman finally walked out, snapping, "I'm not babysitting a man who doesn't care anymore." Later, he told Robert Redford, Watching Brando now is like watching someone burn a Picasso for heat. That line spread through Hollywood like wildfire, a brutal epitaph from one legend to another. By the 1980s, Paul Newman had faced rivals, rebels, and egos of every kind, but few encounters tested his patience like Frank Sinatra and Tom Cruise. On the set of When Time Ran Out, 1980, Newman's discipline clashed head-on with Sinatra's swagger. Sinatra would stroll in hours late, do 2 takes, and disappear in a cloud of cigarette smoke, while Newman arrived early, script marked with notes and focus unshakable. When Sinatra showed up 3 hours late one morning, Newman quietly cut him down with a single line. "You're not late if you were never expected." The room froze. Sinatra laughed. But the respect between them never recovered. Years later, when asked about the singer, Newman simply said, "He has a lovely singing voice." That was his polite full stop. Then came Tom Cruise, the protege who nearly drove him mad. During The Color of Money, 1986, Cruise's hyper-energy and non-stop chatter grated on Newman's calm professionalism. On camera, they were mentor and student. Off camera, Newman found the young actor exhausting. He once joked to Martin Scorsese, "If that kid says he learned from me one more time, I'll throw him through a window." The joke carried truth. Cruise's self-promotion clashed with Newman's quiet craft. When Newman finally won his long-overdue Oscar for the film, he thanked everyone, except Cruise. That silence said everything. By then, the nice guy of Hollywood had learned his limits, and his grudges were as legendary as his grace.